Hello, everybody. Welcome to this AIU EAP 3 reading class. Let's look at today's agenda. So today we're going to have a brief outline of EAP 3. What is EAP? We will introduce the EAP 3 textbook and we will talk about vocabulary acquisition. And then finally, we will look at an example chapter from the textbook and we will talk about rhetoric. Okay, before we get started, let me briefly introduce myself. My name's Mark Ashcroft. I'm from Manchester in the UK. I've lived in Japan for over 20 years, mostly in Akita, but also Kanagawa. And I'm part of the EAP team at AIU. Okay, now let's take a brief look at the EAP 3 reading course. Okay, EAP stands for English for Academic Purposes. Okay, and in the EAP 3 reading course at AIU, you will learn many skills. Here are some of the skills that you will learn at EAP 3. You will understand the academic word list, also known as the AWL. We will talk about that in more detail later. You'll learn how to make reasonable inferences, distinguish fact from opinion. You'll be able to understand text organization. You can identify claims, main ideas, and supporting details. You'll have lots of practice note-taking, highlighting, and annotating texts. You'll be composing your own comprehension and discussion questions. And you'll also have an opportunity to read much more fluently, what we also call extensive reading. Okay, here is the textbook that we are currently using in EAP 3, Introducing the Liberal Arts, a guidebook for English learners. There are 31 chapters covering many disciplines in the humanities, the social sciences, and sciences. So there's a lot of variety. Let me show you the contents page, okay? Let me show you the contents page. There are 3 slides that I'm going to show you, and there are various disciplines on the slides. Please take a look at the different subjects and try to think, what subjects are you possibly interested in learning more about, or what subjects do you know little about? For example, on this slide, you could be interested in history, for example, or rhetoric, which we will talk about later. On this page, maybe you're interested in social linguistics, or perhaps you'd like to know more about marketing. How about chemistry or possibly environmental science? And this is an example of one of the chapters in the textbook. If you look closely, you probably realize that some words are in bold. Now, why are they in bold? The bold words are basically part of the academic word list, the AWL, that we mentioned briefly earlier. Here are some examples from the academic word lists. Okay, please pause the video now and please check the academic word list words. How many words do you know? How many words have you seen but you're not sure of the meaning? And how many words are you seeing for the first time? And here are some more examples for you. Have you heard of the word significant before? Or the word validated? Okay, now let's do a little bit of a quiz, okay? How many words do you need to speak a language? An interesting question. Now, we have some categories here. Words currently used in English. How many words do you think are currently used in English? How many word families does a native speaker know? A word family is the root word. For example, run, running, ran is part of a word family. Another example, blue, bluer, bluish, interesting, interested. These are all word families. How many word families are needed for novels and good newspapers? How many word families are needed for TV and movies? How many word families are needed for conversation? Okay, please pause the video now and please make a guess for each category. Here you go. So, how many words are currently used in English? Wow, 171,146. That's a lot. How many word families does a native speaker know? Well, 20 to 30,000. How many word families are needed for novels and good newspapers? Around 8,000. How many word families are needed for TV and movies? Around 3,000. And how many word families are needed for conversation? About 800. Okay. Now, what you need to learn are the 2,000 most common words for basic communication and the academic word list words for university study. Um, there are 171,000 words currently used in English, and it's impossible to learn them all. And actually, it's probably counterproductive to try to learn them all. Some of the words you will not need in your academic life. However, the 2,000 most common words and the academic word list words are crucial for university study. Okay, so in your EAP reading class, you'll be focusing on the academic word list words. Okay. And AIU EAP 3 students typically range from around 4,000 to 6,000 words. Okay. Now, how do we find these academic words? How do we know what word is an academic word and what word isn't an academic word? Okay. We could use a website like this. Okay. Very simply, you copy and paste your article, any article, into this yellow box, and this will highlight the academic words for you. Okay. Don't do it manually, it will take too much time. Okay. For example, I've just copied and pasted a chapter into the yellow box, and this is the result. Okay, as you can see, there are many words, and the words are all in very different colors. There's yellow words, blue words, green words, red words. Here, the yellow words are from the academic word list. These are the words that you will need to prioritize with your vocabulary learning. Okay. For your information, the blue and the green words are from the 2,000 most common words, so you will need to learn these as well. The red words are what we call off-list words, which basically means they're not used much in everyday conversation. They're very specialized vocabulary. Okay. So these are not your priority. Okay, please pause the video now and please choose 5 words from the academic word list that you don't know or are unfamiliar to you. Okay, please pause the video and choose 5 academic word list words. Okay, so hopefully you've chosen 5 words. Please choose any 2 or 3 of those words. And what I would like you to do by yourself is try your best to give your definition or synonym of that word. For example, I chose the word analyze. Now, the synonym of analyze, a word with a similar meaning, is examine. And the definition of analyze is to study something carefully in order to understand it. Please pause the video and try to do the same thing with the words that you chose. Okay, now let's move on to an example chapter in the textbook. Rhetoric. Okay, rhetoric. Okay. Now, you may or may not have heard of the word rhetoric before. Have you heard of the word rhetoric before? What is rhetoric? If you don't know the answer, please pause the video and please find a definition of the word rhetoric. Okay. Now, today we're not going to read the chapter, but in the classroom you would have read the chapter and you would have a few minutes to find this information in the chapter. Now, according to Aristotle, what is the definition of rhetoric given in the text? Now, I know you can't see the text, but let's look at Aristotle's definition and let's see if it's similar to your definition. Okay, here is Aristotle, our good friend Aristotle. His definition is the faculty of observing in any given case the available means of persuasion. Okay, so we're talking about persuasion when we're talking about rhetoric. Okay, here's another question. What are the 3 common rhetorical appeals and how would you define them? Okay, please pause the video now and please see if you can find the answer. Okay, now the 3 rhetorical appeals, what are they? They are ethos, logos, and pathos. Okay, now how do we define them? Let's start with ethos. Okay, that focuses on credibility. Okay, credibility. For example, as a doctor with 15 years of experience in pediatrics, I highly recommend this vaccine for your child. Okay. We tend to trust doctors, and doctors have a lot of credibility. So, this would be an example of ethos. The doctor tells us to do something, and we trust his or her experience and expertise. So, this is an example of ethos. Okay. Okay, the next one is logos. Now, logos focuses on logic, okay? Logic, okay? For example, based on a study of 10,000 patients over 5 years, this vaccine reduced the infection rate by 94%. Okay, so logic is telling us that this vaccine is very effective. Okay, and finally, pathos. Now, pathos focuses on emotion, okay? For example, every single day that we delay this treatment is another day of agony for patients who are desperately praying for a miracle. Okay, so this is really tugging on your heartstrings. Okay, this is pathos, which focuses on emotion. Okay, now when we're talking about ethos, logos, and pathos and rhetoric, here is a question for you. Can you name a historical figure, any historical figure other than Aristotle? I think we've talked about him enough. And can you think of any examples of how they used rhetoric? There are many, many examples of this. So please pause the video, take a few minutes, and try to come up with at least one historical figure and how they used rhetoric. Okay, here's one example for you. Abraham Lincoln, very, very famous. Now, Abraham Lincoln used rhetoric in many situations. For example, he used ethos. He spoke with moral authority. He used pathos. He honored the sacrifice of dead soldiers during the Civil War. And he used logos in the Gettysburg Address that argued that democracy and equality must survive and prevail. One more example for you. Again, a very famous example, very famous person, Martin Luther King. Okay, now he used ethos. He spoke as a moral leader of the civil rights movement. He used pathos. He used emotional imagery and hope. And logos. The I Have a Dream argued that America must fulfill its promise of equality. I think the I Have a Dream speech is very, very famous. Which historical people did you think about? Please try to explain that in your own words. Okay. Now, talking about rhetoric, what I'd like you to do is to please imagine your own comprehension question. A comprehension question is quite simply confirming you understand the content of the text. So, for example, your comprehension question could be, how would I explain pathos in my own words, for example? Okay. So please spend a couple of minutes thinking of your own comprehension questions. Yeah, a good example would be trying to explain the three rhetorical devices, pathos, logos, ethos, in your own words. If you can do that, that's a good indication that you are comfortable with the content, the material. When you finish that, I want you to please make your own discussion questions. Now, discussion questions quite simply are opinion questions. They're not factual questions, they're based on your opinions. For example, a discussion question may be, uh, please tell me a time where you have used logos in the past. Or another example question might be, which of the three rhetorical devices do you think are most useful to persuade people? For example, there is no clear answer to these questions. So please spend a few minutes thinking of some comprehension questions, discussion questions, and trying your best to answer these questions. Okay, our final activity for today. Let's try to create a persuasive message. Okay, now your goal is to convince someone, your friend, your family member, for example, your teacher. Please try to convince someone to join a club or buy something or support your idea. And you need to use ethos, logos, and pathos. Okay. Now, here is my example of a persuasive message using all three of the rhetorical devices. Here we go. You should join the debate club this semester. I've been a member for a year, and it has really improved my confidence and speaking skills. According to the club's records, over 80% of members report better academic performance in presentations and seminars. Also, imagine how satisfying it would feel to express your ideas clearly and be respected for your opinions in front of others. Okay, so there's my example for you. Can you find the examples of ethos, logos, and pathos here? Let's take a look together. Here you go. So, as you can see, I've used all three rhetorical devices in my answer. There's an example of ethos. It's really improved my confidence and speaking skills. I've been a member for a year. Logos, 80% of members report better academic performance. And pathos, Imagine how satisfying it would feel to express your ideas clearly and be respected. Okay, these are examples of ethos, logos, and pathos. Now, please pause the video here and please try to make your own persuasive message. Okay, let's wrap up today then. So, my final question. We've talked about rhetoric and we've talked about the three devices that we can use with rhetoric. Now, in your opinion, which appeal is most effective in academic writing? Okay, academic writing. Ethos, logos, or pathos? Please pause the video and make your answer and please give your reasons. Okay, here is my answer for you. Logos is generally the most effective appeal in academic writing because academic arguments rely on evidence, logic, and clear reasoning. That's very, very important. The reader will expect the claims to be supported by data, research, and examples, rather than only personal opinions or emotional language. For example, when you're writing an essay, using statistics or studies strengthens your argument and makes it much more convincing. Having said that, ethos is also important as a writer needs to appear credible and knowledgeable. Pathos can sometimes be used to engage the reader, but it's usually less important in academic contexts because in academic contexts, objectivity is the most important point. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you for attending today's lecture. I hope you found it useful. Thank you very much for coming, and I hope to meet you again at AIU. Thank you very much.